Caucus hunter-gatherers and Haplogroup J. But before we get too deep into the video, first I want to tell you guys about my social media platforms. So I have a Clubhouse account and we can actually talk to one another on it. I also host Clubhouse rooms every now and then where I might talk about history and genetics of the Middle East and Africa. I have a Twitter page, a Facebook account, and a Facebook page, as well as a Instagram, all titled The Hebrew of Israel. And what I typically do on these platforms is post upcoming videos as well as slides for my presentations. And so just be on the lookout for all of that on my social media platforms. And if you want to support me financially for the channel, you can look at my Patreon as well as my PayPal and my GoFundMe. And with all of that out of the way, let's begin with the video. One of the oldest human populations we can study with Haplogroup J are the Caucus hunter-gatherers. They are important for us to understand early Haplogroup J men from a geographical and genetic perspective. With that being said, who are Caucus hunter-gatherers? Caucus hunter-gatherers, also called Satsburia cluster, is an anatomically modern human genetic lineage first identified in a 2015 study based on the population genetics of several modern Western Eurasian, European, Caucasian, and Near Eastern populations. Jones at 2015 analyzed genomes from males from Western Georgia in the Caucasus. These two males carried Y DNA haplogroup J star, which means one of the oldest forms of J, and J2A, later refined to J1-FT34521 and J2-Y1379 star. Caucus hunter-gatherer, or CHG ancestry, was also found in the Upper Paleolithic specimen from Satsburia Cave, dated circa 11,000 BC, and in a Mesolithic one from Caucasus Cave in western Georgia, dated circa 7,700 BC. The Satsburia individual is closest to modern populations of the South Caucasus. So here is the study dealing with it. Upper Paleolithic genomes reveal deep roots of modern Eurasians, and it says we sequenced a late Upper Paleolithic Satsburia and a Mesolithic genome from western Georgia at the very eastern border of Europe. We term these two individuals Caucus hunter-gatherers, CHG. We show that Caucus hunter-gatherers belong to a new, distinct ancient clade that split from Western hunter-gatherers, 45 KYA, and from Neolithic farmer ancestors, 25 KYA. This clade represents the previously undetermined source of ancestry in the Yamnaya and contributed directly to modern populations from the Caucasus all the way to Central Asia. So here's a map showing the samples, Satsburia and Caucasus, basically as they said, in western Georgia in the Caucasus. And just to show you the time period as well, Upper Paleolithic and Mesolithic, both in Georgia of the Caucasus. So, continuing the reading, it says Caucus hunter-gatherer contribution to subsequent populations. So it says Bichnon, like younger Western hunter-gatherers, shows strongest affinity to Northern Europeans, while contemporary South Caucasus populations are the closest to Caucus hunter-gatherers, thus implying a degree of continuity in both regions stretching back at least 13,000 years to the late Upper Paleolithic. continuity in the Caucasus is also supported by the mitochondrial and Y-chromosomal haplogroups of Caucus, mitochondrial H13C and Y-DNA J2A, respectively, and Satsserbia mitochondrial K3 and Y-DNA J, which are all found at high frequencies in Georgia today. And so here are the samples, just to show you from the supplementary table. Satsserbia is J, and so is Caucus. And so, continuing the study, it says Y-chromosome haplogroups. Both Georgian hunter-gatherer samples were assigned to haplogroup J, with Caucus belonging to the sub-haplogroup J2A. In a study exploring J haplogroups in 445 individuals from Eurasia, J2A was found at highest frequency in Georgia and Iraq. It is intriguing that both the mitochondrial and Y-chromosome haplogroups of our ancient Georgian samples have been assigned with the Neolithicization of Europe, with tentatively suggested a genetic link between Georgian hunter-gatherers and early European migrants from the Near East. So, what do we know so far when it comes to Caucasus hunter-gatherers? So, for one, we know Caucasus hunter-gatherers were from, western Georgia in the Caucasus. And we know that Caucasus hunter-gatherers had the oldest haplogroup J markers. So, here's just a closer image of where we found the samples in Georgia in two caves, and it's in the western part of Georgia of the Caucasus. And just showing you again when it comes to the samples and the exact location. So, what did Caucasus hunter-gatherers look like? Because we actually also analyzed their phenotype when it comes to these guys. So, the ancient individual from Satsserbia was a male with black hair and brown eyes. However, the individual is one of the earliest found to carry the derived HERC2 allele for blue eyes. The Satsserbia individual also likely had light skin, as he was found to carry the derived SLC24A5 allele for light skin. The Satsserbia individual belonged to mitochondrial DNA haplogroup K3 and Y-DNA haplogroup J1-Y6313 star. About 1.7 through 2.4% of the Satsserbia individual's DNA was Neanderthal in origin. And so here's from the study, Upper Paleolithic genomes revealed deep roots of modern Eurasians, and it says, like EF are European farmers, but in contrast to Western hunter-gatherers, Caucasus hunter-gatherers carry a variant of the SLC2A4A5 gene associated with light skin color. And so here is the supplementary table showing that. So when it comes to the eye color, it's likely that they would be brown-eyed. When it comes to the hair color or the hair shade, it's likely that it'll be dark hair, possibly black to dark hair. And so it says to explore further, we looked at genomes or genotypes in two pigmentations genes proposed to have been strongly selected in the ancestors of modern Europeans, namely SLC45A2 and SLC24A5. Selected SNPs in the SLC45A2 and SLC24A5 genes contributed to lightening of skin and are almost fixed in modern Europeans. We found that Caucasus and Satsserbia have the ancestral version of the SLC45A2 variant, but both Caucus hunter-gatherers have the select version of the SLC245A gene, encompassed by the most commonly associated haplotype found in modern populations. We found it most likely that Balachian, Caucasus, and Serbia had dark/black hair and brown eyes. So Caucus hunter-gatherers, basically, they were light-skinned, black to dark-haired, and brown-eyed. And personally, I would say Caucus hunter-gatherers had an Armanioid appearance. The Armanioid phenotype is typical of peoples of the Caucasus. So here is the Armanioid phenotype, and basically short-headed and high skull type with fleshy features, a flat occiput, and hooked nose, often dark-haired and light brown skin. And so I would say this would kind of fit the phenotype of the Caucasus hunter-gatherers. It says common in mountainous regions of of Asia Minor, especially in Armenia and Anatolia, which is the regions that we're actually dealing with. So this will be the phenotype of Caucasus hunter-gatherer, Armanoid. So furthermore, from everything we learned about Caucasus hunter-gatherers, this fits perfectly with what we've been seeing and understanding about the origins and distribution of haplogroup J. And again, this is from the Origins and Distribution of Human Y-Chromosome Haplogroup J1-M267. It says the J1B-F4306 and J1A2-PH77 branches split off at the very beginning. These are rare lineages distributed mostly among ancient and modern populations of the Caucasus, the Armenian highlands, Iran, and Pakistan. Interestingly, the 13,000-year-old hunter-gatherer from the South Caucasus belongs to J1B-F4306. The J1A1B-Z18375 branch has a geographic distribution subsequently overlapping with that of the J1B-F4306 and J1A2-PH77 branches. The J1A1B-Z18375 branch is found overwhelmingly among ancient and modern populations of the Caucasus, the Armenian highland, Iran, and Anatolia. This branch constitutes the aforementioned peak of haplogroup J1-M267 frequency in the Northeast Caucasus. Haplogroup J1-M267 were found among populations living in the Caucasus and neighboring regions. Our Bayesian continuous phylogeographic analysis suggests the origin of haplogroup J1-M267 in West Asia, confirming previous assumptions. Most of the deeply diverged lineages belong to the populations from the northern latitudes of the region, in line with the finding of the late Pleistocene hunter-gatherer from the South Caucasus. Our analysis provides better statistical confidence for the origin of haplogroup J1-M267 in the area encompassing the Caucasus, the Armenian highland, and the Zagros Mountains. So, ironically, the regions that we see the origins and distribution of haplogroup J is Armenia, in the Caucasus region, Anatolia, and Iran, specifically the Zagros region. And the peoples of these regions fit the typical phenotype of a Caucasus hunter-gatherers. Light skin, dark black hair, brown eyes, the Armanioid types. So here again is just a visualization of where we find these early ancient and modern J markers in Anatolia, Caucasus, and the Zagros. And this is where we find the Armenids. So an Armanid basically is widespread type found in its most specialized form in the mountains of Asia Minor. And physical traits: light brown skin, wavy dark brown hair, and they're hyper brachycephalic, which basically means a round skull. And the Anatolid type, the Anatolid type is an Armanid subtype of Anatolia with Dravinoid features. The core population lives in West Anatolia. And the physical traits is light brown skin, wavy dark brown hair, and they're also brachiocephalic. And also the Indo-Iranian, a relatively recent contact type with a position intermediate between Indo-Brachioid and Iraniid, widespread in Pakistan, Iran, and Afghanistan, reaching to northern India in the east and Turkey in the west. Physical traits is light to medium brown skin, straight or wavy, brown, black hair, plentiful hair. And so these are the regions where we see J. These are the peoples that live in those regions. So Caucus hunter-gatherers were from western Georgia and the Caucasus. Caucus hunter-gatherers carried the oldest haplogroup J markers, and Caucus hunter-gatherers looked light-skinned, had black dark hair, and brown eyes. This is everything we know from what we gathered about them. So with that being said, this is the Caucus hunter-gatherer. We have reached the end of the video, Caucus hunter-gatherers and haplogroup J. Hopefully you enjoyed it. Please leave a comment for any questions you might have. Like, share, subscribe, click the bell, follow my socials that I mentioned at the beginning of the video. And with all of that out of the way, have a great day and shalom.